He's already creating a lot of stir among the Boston Red Sox fan base. But what can Andrew Bailey really bring to the table as the new Boston Red Sox pitching coach? Find out on today's Locked On Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. I'm your host, Gabby, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed for free. Even though there's no baseball games on, it's still a fun time of year with free agency starting to amp up and the Red Sox hiring a new pitching coach potentially. So I'm going to be diving into that on today's episode. But don't forget to continue to make the show your first listen of every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Red Sox. It's a great Thursday. For those of you who tuned in earlier this week, I did mention that I am battling a cold. I'm feeling a lot better, still a little bit stuffy in my nose and a tiny bit of a cough, but overall I feel so much better than I did earlier this week, and I am here and ready to talk more Red Sox baseball. There is news buzzing around the Boston Red Sox community right now, so I'm going to be diving into that on today's episode. But first, while you're at it, I know you're on your phone if you are driving right now and listening to the show, or if you're just hanging out at your house listening to the show. Either way, you're listening on some sort of device. So while you're at it, you should download the SiriusXM app and search Red Sox, and you can get the home broadcast of every game straight to your favorite podcast feed. And now, the reason this is so great is because if you don't want to miss any games, you don't have to. Even if you can't watch it live, wouldn't you rather still know that you can listen to it if you're out going places or you have to get things done around your house? You can feel like you're still being productive, but also keep an eye on what's going on in the game. So if you can't watch the full game start to finish, why not listen to it? So download the SiriusXM app and you can have that ability to do that right now. The Boston Red Sox supposedly are close to hiring Andrew Bailey as the new pitching coach for the team. The news was announced by Ken Rosenthal as well as Alex Speier of the Boston Globe, two very reliable sources in the baseball community. I really respect their work and what they do, and they're very good about breaking news. Ken Rosenthal for everything baseball, really, and Alex Speier is just such an insider on the Boston Red Sox. So it's cool to follow these guys and the news that they're breaking. I highly recommend you follow them on Twitter if you don't already. But the news has broken that Andrew Bailey is closing in on being the next pitching coach for the Boston Red Sox following the firing of Dave Bush about a month ago. This would be a great situation for the Red Sox. I think he's a great choice. I did go into a segment a little bit earlier this week talking about why I feel like he could be a good fit. But now that that is pretty much finalized, I wanted to just go into getting to know him a little bit. What are the important things to know about Andrew Bailey as he ships on over to Boston to be the new pitching coach? Because the number one priority for the Red Sox right now is having a cohesive, clean pitching staff that can figure out how to eat up innings, work together as a group to allow the offense to do their job without putting too much pressure on them to have to score a bunch of runs every night, because the reality at the end of the day is there are going to be games in which the offense is unable to score a lot. It's just the nature of the game. It's a long season. So in games like that, you have to allow for them to be able to do that. So that's when the pitching staff needs to pull their weight and be able to say, hey, we have to step up and keep this game tight so that way the offense has a chance to do their part to win this game. So the goal was to find a pitching coach that could really connect with the players and be somebody who can show that support for the players when it's needed and understand what each player's regime is and what works for them and what doesn't work for them, because it's different for every pitcher. So Andrew Bailey is the type of guy who can provide all of that in Boston. The first thing that is important to note about him is that he is credited with turning around the San Francisco Giants pitching staff. The excitement around him is pretty unusual for a pitching coach. A lot of times people are like, yeah, whatever. When a team hires a pitching coach, it's not a big deal to them. But this time it's a little more exciting. He's getting a little more hype than pitching coaches typically would. And that is because the San Francisco Giants pitching staff turned into a league-wide juggernaut. I mean, they were a pretty scary staff. He had been with the Giants since 2020, a year in which San Francisco pitchers finished with the 18th best ERA of 4.64 and 16th best WHIP 132 in MLB. If as a combination of an overall team, the ERA is over 4, that's definitely not a promising sign. The other stat that's important to note about that is WHIP, which is basically showing how well a pitcher has kept runners off the base paths. So it's basically they just take the sum of the pitcher's walks and hits divided by his total innings pitched. So you want that number to be lower because if it's high, it shows that you're walking and allowing a lot of hits to people compared to the total number of innings you've pitched. So their WHIP as a team was relatively high as well in 2020. But since then, their pitchers have finished with the second best ERA of 3.24, WHIP of 1.15, and FIP of 3.55 in 2021. FIP is basically a stat that takes the ERA scale but filters out only things that are in a pitcher's control. So basically that means home runs, strikeouts, walks, and hit by pitch. Intentional walks don't count in this, but basically anything that a pitcher allows that's under his control. So that's what FIP is. So in 2021, they had the second best FIP as a pitching staff, and as well in 2022 with a 343. They also, as a pitching staff, gave up the fewest home runs with 173 and walks with 403 in 2023. So when you combine the 4 years that Andrew Bailey has been their pitching coach, San Francisco had a team ERA of 3.81, which ranks as the 6th best overall in baseball. To compare, the Red Sox 4.57 team ERA over the last 4 years ranked 23rd. So there obviously was a vast difference between those two clubs. So it's a promising sign that he was able to turn around the Giants pitching staff the way that he has. And not only did he improve their pitching staff as a team, but ever since the pandemic in 2020, he has managed to turn at least one pitcher on that Giants pitching staff into one of the best in baseball. Kevin Gausman is a good example. He made his first All-Star game and finished 6th in National League Cy Young voting in 2021, which was his second year in San Francisco. Another one is Carlos Rodon. He finished at the same spot the following year in 2022, which was his first and only season with that team. But also, as of right now, their current ace is Logan Webb, and he was a finalist for the National League Cy Young this year, earning a spot over Justin Steele, Spencer Strider, and Kodai Senga. It's very promising, and it's something to be excited about because you want to have somebody that you can trust to dive into this pitching staff and elevate the players on it. Andrew Bailey gave a quote on the most important asset for a pitcher and his definition of an ace. He said, "We really accentuate their strengths at all costs and kind of don't dabble in the fringes of movement or usage or anything like that." So he really wants to hone in on what each individual pitcher's strengths are and really cater towards those rather than trying to make too many adjustments. So I like that quality. And when you look at over the last few years how successful that Giants pitching staff has been, he deserves a lot of credit for that. Coming up, I'm going to be going over a couple other good things for you to know about Red Sox likely potential new pitching coach, Andrew Bailey. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. FanDuel is awesome because not only do you get the chance to make a lot of money, but you can also bet on so many different things. So if you're looking for a reliable sports betting app that allows you to really make bets on a variety of different sports at once, FanDuel is certainly the way to go. So just head to FanDuel.com/lockedon today. And don't be surprised if you end up winning some bonus money from them too. So that's another benefit to downloading FanDuel and starting your sports betting experience. Another exciting announcement that I do have is that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. To be able to be a part of this network and be part of that first ever 24/7 sports streaming channel is really rewarding, and there are so many talented hosts here, so I highly encourage you to subscribe to that YouTube channel today. I also encourage you to download the SiriusXM app because you can get the home broadcast of every Red Sox game straight to your feed, so you don't have to worry about missing a single pitch. And I know I myself don't like missing pitches at all. So if you're anything like that, then you're likely going to do the same and be bothered if you miss a game. So download the SiriusXM app and you won't have to worry about that. The Boston Red Sox are closing in on Andrew Bailey being the next pitching coach for the team. So I wanted to go over a couple more important things to note about him. But first, make sure you purchase your tickets for winter weekend this year. Yep, the Red Sox have announced the dates. It will take place at MGM Springfield from January 19th to 20th. So exciting. I was away in Vegas last year for it, but I will not be this year, so I'm hoping to go. So if you see me, say hi. Let me know in the comments on YouTube if you plan on going, because it's always a great time to get to meet players and interact and just be involved with a lot of different Red Sox related activities. So definitely purchase your tickets because it's super exciting. Speaking of exciting, Andrew Bailey has a lot he can bring to the table when it comes to the Boston Red Sox pitching staff. One of the biggest things to know about him is he had multiple suitors after him. There are a lot of teams that wanted to hire him this offseason as a result of what he did in San Francisco. According to the New York Post, Joel Sherman, besides the Red Sox, the Orioles and Marlins were heavy favorites also in the running to have Bailey become their next pitching coach. And he denied the Chicago White Sox an opportunity to do the same because they wanted him. And then the Yankees also had interest in signing him as the team's bench coach to replace Carlos Mendoza, who ended up being hired as the manager of the New York Mets. Bench coach does come with a higher status than pitching coach. And living in New York, I thought it was an ideal opportunity for Bailey, who was a Jersey native and former Yankee, unfortunately. So I felt like that could have been a good opportunity for him. But being a pitching coach might be more along the lines of what he's interested in, because at the end of the day, he was a pitcher. So that is his strong suit. So when somebody has multiple suitors after them, you know that they've done something right. And obviously, the Red Sox aren't the only team that have seen some good things in Bailey. You want somebody who's highly desirable. The Red Sox don't want to hire somebody who's basically somebody else's scraps, the league's scraps. They want somebody who's going to be on the market, and a lot of teams want, because then they can trust that they're hiring somebody who probably will do a good job because they've already set the stage for success by the things they've done in other organizations. So because of the work that he did with the Giants, it made the Red Sox really keen on wanting to hire him. And obviously these other teams are going to be disappointed. And that makes me feel good, especially because the Yankees are disappointed. We love when the Yankees are disappointed. And I'm all for that, because this move is one the Red Sox have to get right, because their pitching staff as a whole has been rocky for too long at this point. So it's really imperative that they hit this move on the jackpot. And by hiring Andrew Bailey, it appears that they might do just that, because of how many teams saw the potential in him and the way that he can go about turning around a pitching staff. You can't always explain what somebody's doing to improve a pitching staff and the approach they're actually taking to make that happen. But obviously, he was doing something right in San Francisco. And when you have guys coming out who are becoming absolute studs, you know that he's doing something to help make that happen. So how desirable he was this offseason is very important to know. And look at teams like the Baltimore Orioles and Miami Marlins. Those two teams are both teams that were in the postseason in 2023 and are trying to get the right pieces in place to make that happen again in 2024. And when you have people vying for somebody to help do that they feel like can be part of that future of their pitching staff, when they're pretty close to being teams that can make deep postseason runs, you know it's serious. I mean, the Baltimore Orioles won over 100 games in 2023. So if they want Andrew Bailey because they feel like he can help elevate a pitching staff that was already relatively competitive that year, he's the real deal. I really like it. And also, what's important to know about this is he pitched for the Red Sox and won a World Series with them in 2013. So you might recognize his name because of that. Ultimately, the Red Sox traded with the A's for the former American League Rookie of the Year after the 2011 season. So then after they did that trade with the A's to get him, he pitched his first game in Boston near the end of 2012 and ended up becoming the team's closer following an injury to their prior closer shortly after the 2013 season began. So then he basically went on this tear and had his best few months since leaving Oakland, registering a 377 earned run average and a 1.221 whip with 8 saves, 39 strikeouts, and an AL Player of the Week award for the week of April 21st, 2013. This was over 30 appearances. And then unfortunately, he did suffer a season-ending shoulder injury that July. But in his absence, his team capped off an astounding playoff run by winning the World Series, which we all know how surprising it was that the Red Sox won the World Series in 2013, but that team was just so special and just destined to win it all. So even though he was injured, he at least still got to enjoy the ride of winning a World Series championship with the team. And then the Red Sox chose not to tender him a contract following that 2013 season. So he signed with the Yankees and pitched for them, and then the Phillies, and then the Angels before retiring in 2018. The reason all of this is good is because, for one, he was a pitcher and knows what it's like to have to overcome an obstacle like an injury, because he did have that injury in 2013 with the Red Sox and then wasn't able to pitch the rest of the season, but was then able to bounce back and contribute for other teams the next few years before he retired. So if he can connect with the pitchers on the level of, if they get injured, helping them mentally with their mindset of overcoming that, that's a win for the Red Sox, because it's important to get somebody in there who can relate to what they're going through. And just the fact that he was a pitcher at the major league level, so he understands the pressure that comes with being a major league pitcher, can go beyond any expectations when it comes to him helping these Red Sox pitchers out, because he was in their shoes before. And if they're having a bad outing and he goes out there for a mound visit, I'm sure he'll know what he has to say to them to get them to refocus and get back on track so that they can finish the outing on a stronger note. So that's another good reason why him having been a pitcher is something that he can connect with these pitchers on. And also, he pitched in Boston, so he knows how tough it can be to pitch in Boston and what type of environment that is at Fenway Park, so he can help some of these younger pitchers through that. And I'm looking at him particularly to help Brian Bayo, who's still trying to come out of his shell and figure out how he can get to the point where he can be a dominant pitcher in this league. And if Bailey can offer him some pointers about things he can do to improve and how to block out the noise of pitching in front of a tough Fenway crowd, that's a win, because then Bayo can take that and keep it in mind when he pitches the next time. So there are a lot of pros to him having been in the Boston Red Sox organization before as a pitcher. Don't forget that you can subscribe to Locked On Red Sox on your favorite podcast platform for free. Get a new episode from me Monday through Friday. It is that time of year where moves are going to be starting to happen. They might happen quickly. They might happen slowly and gradually over time. We don't really know, but either way, they're going to happen. And I'm going to be here through it all, keeping you updated on all of those moves and helping to explain why certain moves might be happening. So you want to have the episodes ready to go and handy. So hit that follow button, share it with your friends and family, leave a review, leave a rating. Follow me on Twitter at GabbyHurlbut10, and we can continue the discussion that way as well. And also, don't forget that the SiriusXM app does have you covered for all things Boston Red Sox for the broadcast, because you can start your day by listening to Locked On Red Sox and then finish your day by listening to the Red Sox home broadcast on the SiriusXM app. Just download the app and search Red Sox, and then you can get the home broadcast of every game straight to your feed, so you don't have to worry about missing a single pitch if you don't want to. And who would want to? Especially at the beginning of the season when we're all hyped up for more baseball because we miss it right now, myself especially. We don't want to miss anything, and we're just so excited to be in on the action. So you can still be in on the action even if you can't watch it. Just download that app today. The Red Sox did have a pitcher that was claimed off waivers by the Padres. His name is Logan Gillespie. This is a very minor thing, but just wanted to mention it. He was a late season waiver claim by the Red Sox from the Orioles that just never ended up making an appearance in the big leagues. So he spent some time in Boston very briefly late in the season and just hung out in the minors. But the Padres did just claim him off waivers, so that leaves the Red Sox 40-man roster with 2 open spots. So who those spots go to, we'll have to see, but it's a good thing to know that it's now at 38. Andrew Bailey has a lot of pros to him for being brought in as the Red Sox pitching coach, and one of the most important things to know about him is that he's close with new Red Sox chief baseball officer Craig Breslow. Bailey and Breslow were actually teammates on the 2013 World Series winning Red Sox team and are also close friends still to this day. So they have that relationship on the field of playing baseball together, and also obviously a personal relationship off the field since they are close friends. The relationship between these two goes back to 2009, actually, because they pitched together on the A's at that point. Since then, they've only grown closer because they used to live close to each other in Connecticut and also work together on Breslow's Strike 3 Foundation, which is dedicated to raising funds and awareness for pediatric cancer. So Andrew Bailey has done a lot with Craig Breslow, both on the baseball field and off. So that alone is super important because it can create some immediate chemistry among him and the Red Sox front office right away without having as many of those growing pains of having to get to know one another, because he's close with Breslow, who makes a lot of those decisions about who to bring in. That could be key, because if Andrew Bailey's the pitching coach and he's working with the pitchers on a day-to-day basis, I'm sure Breslow trusts him and his opinion on pitchers because they've worked together on the field. So Bailey could go to Breslow and say, hey, we need another reliever that is a righty, or this pitcher isn't doing so great. Maybe we could look to just send him down to AAA for a little bit and give him more reps. And I'm sure there will be some inside conversations between those two that could happen because of the relationship they have. And it could make everything work a lot better for the Boston Red Sox. And you look at all these other teams that were interested in Bailey and didn't end up landing him. And I find it hard to believe that Breslow had nothing to do with that. I think Craig Breslow being hired was more enticing to Andrew Bailey to come to Boston and work with his club because he feels comfortable working with him. And if you're in a work environment, you obviously want to work with somebody who you feel comfortable with. And I'm sure from the standpoint of a work environment and working well with your people, Bailey really appreciates and respects Breslow and vice versa. So when I realized that connection, that they have worked together before and crossed paths, and they have that strong relationship with each other still, I said, I feel like I could see the Red Sox landing Andrew Bailey because of that. And sure enough, here we are. I bet Breslow said, I want you to work with me in Boston. And it gave the Red Sox a leg up. And that relationship is so important and could end up being even more valuable for the Red Sox than people realize and give it credit for. Because you want to be able to work well with the people you're working with. And I felt like Chaim Bloom and ownership weren't always on the same page, and Alex Cora and Chaim Bloom weren't always on the same page when it came to moves that should be made for the team and who fits where. But now that there's this already preconceived chemistry between Andrew Bailey and Craig Breslow, I think that'll only help mend the relationship among the whole Red Sox coaching staff and front office. So I think this is a great move for Boston. I think he's going to do a lot to provide value for this Red Sox organization, and we're going to see dramatic improvement from this pitching staff. And I'm excited to see how Brian Bayo improves, because he has the potential to be the Red Sox ace down the road. So certainly excited to see what he can offer. Don't forget, before I let you go, that Locked On does have the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is bringing you sports coverage 24/7, covering all of the top stories of the day, and the local experts of Locked On will be there for you to provide you that content, and the national shows will be covering every league. It's a huge opportunity for Locked On. So please go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to this, because us being the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel is a pretty big deal. So you can show your support by subscribing to that today. Like I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.